What is the variable power? Variable is an interesting power. It's less of a traditional power and more of an opportunity for on-the-fly powers. It sounds kind of tricky, but when used properly, it's an essential tool for more complex superpowers. By spending 7 points per rank, the most for any base power, you get a free floating set of 5 points per rank to chew on and temporarily assemble new powers on the fly. Despite this versatility, there are a handful of limits. When you create your base variable power, you select one or more descriptors like Fire, Create, Psychic, etc. Your variable power is locked into creating powers that are relevant to those descriptors, and you'll be expected to create logical powers based on those base descriptors. Your Game Master has the final call on if your power limitations are valid or not. Fire can be used to damage, possibly even inflict certain afflictions, and you could stretch a weakened power from severe burns. It would be difficult to justify using fire for, say, the Create power, or most Senses powers, but one friend of mine used fire to increase their speed via flight. The variable power itself is a standard action, personal range, and sustained duration. By spending a standard action, you can reallocate that stockpile of free-floating points into a new temporary power, completely within your descriptors and limitations. As a reminder, sustained powers have to be kept up manually with a free action. Switching away from sustained powers functions like an array, turning the power off. They also shut off automatically if you go unconscious. In a way, this power functions like a multi-tool. A multi-tool has many different uses, but you can only use one at a time. Remember, even a simple power descriptor like an element can be used to justify damage, environmental change, or flight, so try to think on what should be possible. By tying multiple powers into a variable power, you can pull off whatever crosses your mind that's within the realm of believability, or the rule of cool. This is why the input cost is so high. It's all opportunity cost. Extras. There's a handful of extras, and they're quite simple. Action reduces the time it takes to reorganize your variable power, down from a standard action to a move action, free action, or reaction. Each step reduction costs an additional 1 point per rank. Game Masters should be conscious when allowing free action variable powers, as they can slow the game down if players don't know how to properly use it. Consider a timer if needed. Affects Others allows you to grant your variable power to a close-range subject. The powers become temporarily and entirely theirs to control, but that control can be rescinded at any time. If variable only affects others, it's +0 per rank. If variable can affect both you and the subject, it's +1 per rank. Ranged and Perception both increase the range of the Affects Others extra to Ranged and Perception. Going from close to range is +1 point per rank, and going from range to perception is another +1 point per rank on top of that. Flaws. Limited further limits a variable power down from its built-in limitations. -1 point per rank. This is somewhat subjective as the GM has a say as to what is considered limited enough. The book offers a variable power that can only be used to provide skill bonuses as an example of a limited variable power, but it also says such limitations might just be the boundaries of a normal variable power, depending on how it's made. Slow. Your variable power can only be refigured outside of action time. -1 point per rank. Your power takes anywhere from a minute to an hour to change its capabilities. It can still be changed between scenes. The GM may allow you to reconfigure it on the fly with a hero point. That is the last of variables' unique modifiers. Applying other modifiers to variable directly seems like a moot point when you're supposed to use variables' points to apply modifiers to its sub-powers. Good advice. I'll give you guys some good advice, then I'll end off with some example applications of this power that might get you thinking about cool and interesting uses. Well, the most important thing is to keep a small note with every power type and modifier you find interesting as well as the cost per rank. That way you can quickly assemble powers and easily calculate its cost. If you get good, it should only take a handful of seconds. Damage 10, Area 10, Weaken 5, Area 5, 30 cost, done. I will also remind you that if you buy linked powers, that is, powers that function at the same time on the same turn, such as linked damage and affliction, both powers need to buy their respective extras individually. It's not damage 5, affliction 5, ranged 5, it's damage 5, ranged 5, affliction 5, ranged 5. If your variable power costs a move action to remix, you can always use the charge maneuver to move and attack in the same turn with just a -2 penalty to your hit check. It's better than not attacking at all. Remember to use maneuvers regularly to keep play interesting and work around your situation. Grabs especially are very potent. My last piece of advice is usefulness may vary from Game Master to Game Master. I tend to allow my players to create an array with their variable power as the base power. If they have a fire variable power, they can decide if they really like a certain attack, let them buy it as an alternate effect. Cheap, effective, and fun. I see few reasons not to encourage this, but a GM might think of this as gamey, I suppose. I find it's a self-balancing system, but others might disagree. Consider wisely what you allow and disallow. Applications and ideas. I've already given an example of the most common applications of this power, that being a freestyle and versatile general application of an existing power descriptor. In official books such as the Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition core rulebook and the Power Profile book, there are decent examples of how you can get a little more creative. Animal mimicry obviously allows one to copy animal traits, either in whole or in part. Simple stat boosts from remixing the strength of a gorilla, the flexibility of an octopus, and the speed of a horse. Power remixing like the regeneration of body parts from an exaggerated lizard tail regeneration, gills for underwater breathing, or flight like a bird. Power mimicry, of course, allows one to copy the powers of other power users. Typically, in Mutants and Masterminds, copied powers are temporary, as well as lost powers, outside of GM Fiat. Don't expect to be an evil mastermind like All for One, freely giving and taking powers. At least not without the GM approval and the expectation of playing nice. Although that could be the start of a crazy campaign idea. But for power mimicry, you're more of a Kevin Levin. I've built and seen many builds that instead go for the more mundane but effective route of having your variable power give enhanced traits. Strength, fighting, and stamina boosts with a small dash of speed up and jumping boost makes you an imposing force of nature. Another odd power that's perhaps more suited towards an enemy rather than a mainstay player is referred to as Dream Mastery. Total control of reality from only within dreams. It's niche. A variable power with access to all powers while within a dream sounds like a certain villain. An archetype I'm a big fan of, due to a friend using it in a beloved campaign of mine, is that of the Energy Absorber. Fire, electricity, or even other mundane elements like water become useful tools, and the world becomes filled with opportunity. Dangers like heat and fire become a power source instead of a hazard. Afflicted by a psychic attack, I'll borrow that for a bit. There's nothing like absorbing the unique energy of an enemy and turning that power against them. In general, variable powers have as many uses as you can think of. When a mainstay like damage doesn't get the job done, lean on more unorthodox powers like move object or create. Keep your options open.